With your help, we can continue to fight for freedom, reach new audiences, and bring important information to the public free of charge. This is not possible without your generosity. Join our quest for the truth and our freedom and donate today, telling it as it is. This is today's News Talk, The World Today.
Welcome back. It's a Tuesday. Just goes like that, doesn't it? Nice to have your company. It's 6:08 in the UK, 4:08 in Queensland, New South Wales, the land of protest. Well, the non-protest that are protesters, something like that. It's times that there are 8:05, and also in Victoria, 5:08. Nice to have your company too. It's not a bad day here on the Gold Coast, the epicentre of Lubrilips and white sand. Now, there were protests planned around the country yesterday against Israeli President Isaac Herzog's visit to Australia. Now, very large crowds in Sydney turned out, attempting an unsanctioned march that blocked central streets, prompting the police to issue dispersal orders and intervene. Police arrested 27 people, including 10 for assaulting police. Protesters described the response as excessive force. And if you've seen those videos, there was a lot of excessive force. Ian Rintoul is a member of Stop War on Palestine. Ian, who has spent many years as an anti-war activist, was at the Sydney protest yesterday. Ian, thanks for joining me. Tell me in your words, how was it?
Well, on the one hand, it was a fantastic turnout, and some of the estimates of the demonstration say up to 20,000 people, and certainly the town hall square was packed in the way I haven't seen it for a long time. So a very impressive turnout to make it very clear that Herzog is not welcome in Australia, and the people are just genuinely disgusted with Anthony Albanese and with Chris Minns. So that side of the response was very, very good. I think people were. They were shocked. People were shocked with the response by the police. We knew, we expected there'd be some determined resistance from them for the rally to march. But the kind of violence and the numbers of police that were willing to exercise that violence is something I don't think Sydney has seen for quite a long time. So many people have been traumatised. There are still people who are in hospital, and people are shocked at the police response. But they're also very pleased that the demonstration was ultimately able to march, challenge the anti-march laws, the anti-protest laws of the Minns government, and actually did take to the streets in defiance of those laws.
Were you surprised at the size of the crowd?
Look, it was on the high side of what our expectations were, and I suppose in that sense, yes, we're surprised and pleased. And there were such concerted efforts by the police, even before the square was actually full. The police were making efforts at all the entrances to actually block and physically blocked the entrances at some stage. So, a number of people were, turned away by the police activity even before it came to the end of the rally. So that it could have been considerably larger, I think, than what it turned out to be. So, like I said, some of the figures are, up to 20,000 people. Initially, we thought 5 to 10 would be good.
What about the protesters? Were most peaceful, or and people get excited at times. They get a bit overexcited at times. So you always allow a couple of bullfeds to go a bit crazy, but and which the media, by the way, certainly highlights that those couple of clots go running around and creating a little more trouble. It's certainly they certainly tarnish the rest who are really just after a way of expressing their voice. And you and I both agree that you don't ban protest, especially if they're peaceful. Do you think? Tell me this. Do you think? So I put most of the blame, by the way, not on the police, in particular, I put it on the government, and we have Chairman Minns, who truly is such a heavy-handed, very heavy-handed premier. A lot of this could have been avoided, couldn't it? I mean, if they allowed you to protest, and you have a right to protest, for them to say, "Oh no, we can't do that. It's going to create trouble." If that's the attitude, already the tension and stress is there. People don't like being told they haven't got a right to protest, and especially if they're doing it peacefully. So do you blame the government and Chris Minns on the unrest and the stress and the excitement level that was a bit over the top?
Look, it's absolutely the responsibility rests with Chris Minns. I mean, behind that, it rests with Anthony Albanese for inviting Isaac Herzog, in the first place. And I think people need to understand the disgust, that people have that Herzog, given his responsibility, given his implications in the ongoing genocide in Gaza, that the Albanese government would invite him, and for him to be so welcomed, by Chris Minns, and for Minns then to not just have the public assembly restriction declaration, but then to declare a special event that provided the police with even greater powers, and made it clear over and over and over again, that there was going to be no authorised march in Sydney. And I think for many people, the hypocrisy, the double standard. On the one hand, you could have someone who has been implicated in genocide, have the freedom of the city, for the streets to be blocked out, for cavalcades, to go to and from the airport, from the city, to Bondi, from his hotel to the convention centre in Darling Harbour, and yet for protesters against genocide to be confined. To initially they said it could be lawful to assemble in Town Hall, but the actions on the night made it very clear that while technically it was lawful and people assembled there expecting that they would at least have the right to assemble in Town Hall to make their grievances with the Minns government and with Isaac Herzog very clear, that turned out to not to be the case. Even the exercise of that limited right was too much for Minns and the police. But I think some responsibility does have to be taken by the police. I mean, ultimately they had the discretion on the night. They could have facilitated a march at points at different times during the night. There was an indication that was going to be the case, that they were going to allow a march from Town Hall to Central, only to find out that more tens, hundreds of police were actually mobilised across the street to prevent people marching. At one point, you had an absurd situation, really, of police actually blocking a whole intersection between Town Hall and Central, with hundreds of people, blocked between rows of police with nowhere to go.
And the crazy thing is, this all could have been avoided. We did not need President Herzog here at all. It was very antagonistic, and it was like pouring fuel over a naked flame. And I'm just wondering, part of me wonders whether it was intentional on behalf of the government in partnership with the federal government. Because we know that if you go a step deeper, they want to bring in all sorts of wild laws so that your personal freedoms and your rights to protest, have free speech and stuff, it's going to diminish greatly if they bring in all these particular laws. So the best way to create the sense of panic amongst the Australians is to show scuffles with police and a bit of violence here and there, and things are out of control, and they say, see, we need to have these heavy-handed laws, and people go, oh yeah, we have to be protected. So I blame, and I understand the police. I saw some video. I think it was appalling that you had to have these boys in blue. There was one stage, I think 4 or 5, beating the crap out of this guy. And there is no excuse for that, and they need to be held accountable. But as for the police, I mean, they got this dreadful law again from Minns, and the coppers are just doing what they're told. If they don't do what they're told, all of a sudden you're going to have complete chaos. So I understand in a way some of those coppers. I don't understand why they would beat the crap out of someone or other people. And we saw that in Victoria with COVID. But I understand that they do have a particular role to play. I think the role has been abused intentionally on behalf of the New South Wales government. And I challenge Chris Minns to come on and talk about it, because he won't. And I also challenge someone from the federal government to come on and say this is not an attempt to create hysteria and bring in new laws that will curtail our freedoms, and they won't. So I understand that. What was the reaction from yourself when you saw that video of that poor bugger? And even though he was, I mean, apparently, according to the police, he bit someone or bit a policeman, and therefore they have to neutralise that particular person. But it went overboard, didn't it? I mean, the punching and the sitting on this guy. It reminds me of that lady that was in Richmond on that COVID protest, and she was a very bad lady. She would have been in her 70s, could hardly walk up the hill, and they all tackled her. I mean, we have this mark too, except this person was a bit younger.
Yeah, look, that's not the only case, unfortunately. I mean, there are many of those videos. I must say, my experience with the police is often that those kind of charges about assault police, bite police, spit police are often retrospective, and to try to find something to justify, the assaults that they've perpetuated in, making the arrest in the first place, sometimes with no legitimate reason. I mean, there's another guy who's actually with last night who's released without charge, who was taking video. He had, goggles. He had a helmet. He was a freelance journalist, and put it that way. He made it clear that that's what he was doing. He was moving in front of the police, just taking the video with his camera. He was assaulted. With such force that his goggles were broken. There's actually a split in the helmet that he had, on his head. He was savagely beaten and taken to the police station, but released without charge, because he's got a lot of video footage which showed every bit of the lead up to when he was finally assaulted by the police. I mean, understand the point you make. I mean, I think the police were wound up last night. They had been Minns created expectations of what he wanted his police force to do. But I think most people see the police force in a democratic society that should not be, the plaything of, a government, certainly not of Chris Minns's, or, similarly to do what they are instructed to do, and that's, suppress this demonstration, because he's made it clear that the anti-protest laws, the public assembly restriction, the declaration of the special events period was directed at pro-Palestine, demonstrations. That's specifically where it was, directed. And so every opportunity to facilitate, some kind of march out of Town Hall last night was refused. But ultimately, Chris Minns and the police, I think, do have to take responsibility for the level of violence that's perpetuated last night.
Yeah, and the police. I mean, again, I'm saying, and you are agreeing to a point, that there is a certain amount of stress, and which is almost intolerable. But on the other side, the police are trained for these sort of things, and they surely they must know that people are going to film them, even if they fart in the main street. They're going to get some footage of that. So I mean, to ignore this, and say, oh well, we're going to just give someone a bit of a hiding. They have to know that they will be filmed. And as for assaulting a journalist or someone, videoing the whole thing, again, that's just bully boy tactics, and trying to put the fear of God into others. And I think there's no place for that in a democracy, and there's no place in a democracy for a lot of the laws that have been brought in to curtail free speech. And it's either free speech or it's selective speech. And as Chris Minns said, the government, free speech is what government affords you. And I just say to Chris Minns, you can bugger off, mate. Meet you in a pub and have a discussion about this, because that is not how a democracy works, is it, Ian?
No, and I think that we will keep making that point from the streets of Sydney and from the other streets across Australia. We've now got 3 state governments. Queensland is implementing laws to ban from the river to the sea and globalise the intifada. Minns has made it clear he wants those laws in place, by the end of the month. Victoria, similarly, we've seen extraordinary measures in that sense against demonstrations and against, as you put it, free speech, but again, very, very specifically directed at the Palestinian, at the Palestinian movement. I mean, not to be able to chant from the river to the sea, is absolutely extraordinary. Not to be able to talk about globalise the intifada when you've got so many governments around the world that are implicated in the genocide. Parts are still being exported, from Australia for the F-35s. Just look at armoured steel exported out of Wollongong, which goes to Israel. We've got a government which is heavily implicated, specifically and materially, in the genocide, and now caused, politically and ideologically, by hosting Isaac Herzog and his Zionist entourage. So there is a big challenge, for the Palestine movement. But I think, as we saw last night, and as we'll see in Melbourne and other cities that were in Canberra, Melbourne, other cities where Herzog is visiting, he'll be similarly met with very strong, very strident protests saying Herzog is not welcome.
Isn't it just you were talking? I mean, if Donald Trump came out, there'll be protest also, and I dare say that there would not be as many police there, or there'll be a sort of a turning of the head because, we don't like Donald Trump. But it's a very selective approach by authorities. Here's the part that disturbs me, and I think you probably agree. The protests are aimed right at the Israeli government, Netanyahu and his bunch of goons. That's who, and we're saying stop killing innocent people. You cannot keep killing innocent people. Get the hell out of Gaza, but at least stop killing innocent people. And so the curtail of our free speech, we must not attack the Israeli government because otherwise we'll be called anti-Semitic. And that's what we're doing. We are attacking, we are protesting, we are saying it is barbaric to the Israeli government. Stop. And start considering those who you are attacking. And the rest of the world start standing up. You've all said that we're going to stand behind you. At the moment, you're all hiding behind skirts. So we're not attacking the Jewish people in Australia. We're attacking the Israeli government. They've got to stop it.
Yes.
And this is where these laws become all nutso. They pit you and I or others against the Jewish people and vice versa. And the same thing with those who follow Islam. It is not about Australians. It is about the Israeli government. And that's where these laws are meant to create the confusion. The stress levels become enormous, and we have this divided country. And that is what they want, isn't it?
Yeah, that's what they create and continue to paint that picture that somehow or other being, anti-Israel's genocide is anti-Jewish. But you make the point, very well. The movement is against the actions of the Israeli government. The people who are named, Netanyahu, Isaac Herzog, should be in the ICC. It's not directed against Jewish people. And there's been some fantastic things in Australia. Whole page advertisements, posters that are going up on behalf of the Jewish community, statements signed by hundreds, if not thousands, of Jews in Australia, making it very clear that they're opposed to Isaac Herzog, they're opposed to the policies of the Israeli government, and this is from the Jewish community itself. And I think that's one of the things which simply because their commitment to Israel, that Albanese, Chris Minns are unable to see. The pleas and the arguments and the demands that are coming from huge sections of the Jewish community, not just in Australia. I mean, it's right across the world. That point has been made, over and over again. Sometimes in specifically Jewish demonstrations, to make it clear that you have got anti-Zionist Jews who keep saying to Netanyahu and to Isaac Herzog, not in our name. And that point is made over and over again. That's embraced by the movement. The movement is not, anti-Semitic. It's not, any kind of threat to the Jewish community. It's not responsible for what happened, at Bondi. If you want to understand what happened at Bondi, you've really got to look at the measures of Netanyahu, who try to claim that Gaza, that the genocide is being done in the name of Jews. It's not. That itself is a terrible smear.
Yeah, I totally agree, and you mentioned the Queensland government going to ban all these slogans with stiff penalties, including imprisonment. Again, it's an attack on free speech, and so free speech is no longer. It becomes selective. They'll jump up and down and say, "No, we're trying to stop this anti-Semitic activity," and that's just BS. That is BS. I mean, I'm sure I have some great friends who are Jewish, and I have great friends who are Muslim. I have great friends who are Catholic, and those who are, whatever. Who cares? We're all Australian, but if you're an Australian, you should be outraged at innocent people being killed. And that is what they're trying to do. The government from Israel is placed enormous pressure, not only on the Australian government, but on governments from around the world. Shut these people up. Shut them up. We're going to keep doing what we want to do. We have had, what have they had in this peace deal? Over 1,000 infringements already. 450 people killed. So no, the Israeli government, this is not anti-Semitic, but we're saying you need to stop now. These protests will not stop, and you shouldn't stop. If you are a good Australian, you will object to the killing of innocent people. Think about those kiddies, those kids that see their parents blown to bits, or think about the parents that see their kids blown to bits, and then try and get out and justify this mass murder.
Yeah. Yeah, where's the demand from the Albanese government for a real inquiry into the murder of Zomi Frankham, the Australian aid worker who's killed by an Israeli missile? It is simply extraordinary. And I think the measures that are being taken, the Isaac Herzog, the anti-protest laws. One of the reasons the protest in Sydney was so big last night was that people just respond that way. You say we cannot protest, that in itself is actually an more people, are going to protest. So I think this is only going to grow. I don't think Albanese realised just how much damage he's done to himself and the Labor Party.
I don't think he really cares a whole lot. Can you just tell me when Herzog leaves Australia?
Thursday. Yeah. I think the final demonstration will be on Thursday afternoon in Melbourne, and then he departs.
And I know it's a very sensitive time because they're still mourning those 15 people killed at Bondi. But here's the thing. I mean, they were Jewish people. They were killed, but they are also Australian people. And all Australians felt repulsiveness towards these people. They killed these 15 Australians who are Jewish. And if there had been others in the street, whatever religion they are, whatever culture they are Australian. So we feel for that, but we do not, and I'm right with you, we do not support genocide, and the UN recognises that. We do not support the annihilation of people, the destruction of their homes. We don't support that. We don't just support that the annihilation of these people continues, and we want it to stop. Otherwise, I support you, Ian. I support you wholeheartedly. You get out there and you tell them that Australia does not support murder. And that's what every Australian should do. It's on your conscience. That's what your grandparents did. They fought to give you freedom in all wars. And now we need to make sure that we do not sanction or we do not support mass murder in other countries, such as Israel, that had been a very close ally for many years to Australia. And many, many great Jewish people have made an impact in this country. The Israeli government's got to get the hell out. That's what I think. Sorry, I'm very emotional.
Exactly.
I think what's happened, I think you're a very brave man, by the way. And I think those people who are protesting, I think they have a right to protest, and that is free speech. It is not selective speech. and anybody who says otherwise have got their head up their ass. There you are. I'm a bit wild. I apologise for that terrible language. But look,
it's okay. Sometimes it's not language. There's necessary.
Well, you have to. You've got to have you've got to have some gonads, as they say. If somebody wants to find out more about what you do and the job you're doing, how do they do that?
They can always find, just look for Stop the War on Palestine, on Facebook, on Instagram, the Palestine Action Group in Sydney. Similarly, all the details of the demonstration. We're going to be outside the Surrey Hills police station, this afternoon. But that's the way you can find out and get the up-to-date measures.
Yeah, I appreciate your time. Very illuminating, and I think we just got to, you've got to do the right thing. The right thing is to make sure that we have to stop the killing of innocent people. I mean, just sidebar here. What about in Niger with all those Christians being killed? We're rolling a spot here. Tell me, have you heard anything else? I haven't heard a damn thing. It's and they are
very, very little. You have to
and again, we need to say something about it. But legacy media and a lot of independent media don't give a rat's about it. And, it's all how we can become the hero, and not instead of becoming the hero, they need to become.
Driven by selective foreign policy. I think like Sudan doesn't get anything like coverage it should, because you've got different countries on different sides, and it's inconvenient to talk about the genocide in Sudan. But I agree with you. It is just it's political selectivity, which says, we're going to turn a blind eye. Not just turn a blind eye to the genocide in Gaza. The Australian government is complicit, and that's what I think drives the anti-protest laws, which drives their concern to make certain slogans, political slogans, unlawful, because Globalise the Intifada is really directed at our own government, and they don't like that. They don't like 300,000 people on the Sydney Harbour Bridge, because they know that some of that anger is also directed at the fact that the Australian government won't stop the export of the F-35 parts. It turns a blind eye to the armoured plate that's being exported for the tanks and the armoured cars in Israel. So they know that they're implicated, and the anger on the street is directed against them, and it will continue to be the case. Like I said, I think they've really shot themselves in the foot, inviting Herzog, and then implementing kind of anti-protest laws that they've done to try to protect him and themselves.
Maybe they'll stop accepting stuff from us. If you look at Ukraine, the NATO-Russia war, with Ukraine stuck in the middle. If you look at that, we sent over all these bushmasters, and most of them broke down. So maybe we could do that. Send them more which a bushmaster, I think, is very much akin to a Hillman Imp. Remember those cars? Engine in the back? They were dreadful.
I do, yes.
Ian Rintoul, thank you so much for your time. You're doing a great job, and God bless you, sir. This is The World Today.
Our mission at Pets of the Homeless is really simple, and that's to keep vulnerable people and their pets together when they're going through a tough time. Back in 2015, Pets of the Homeless started with a 20-kilo bag of dog food, made it into small packs, put it in a suitcase, and it was just me walking down the streets of Melbourne. One woman on a mission to make a difference. I would share the story on social media.
We've just hit 100,000 meals distributed today.
And the community really responded positively, and it just grew from there.
My name is Kent, and this is Hippo. She's everything to me. She's such a good girl. I got her at a time when I wasn't very stable. I'd come out of prison, I was homeless, but as soon as I got her, I just realised, oh my God, I can't let this dog go. And she's just my best friend. Hippo had a canine equivalent of an ACL injury. I knew there was something really desperately wrong. It was agonising seeing her suffering. My caseworker put me in touch with Pets of the Homeless, and Yvonne said that they could help, and I was just so overjoyed. I wouldn't have been able to get through that medical incident without their help. Like, it just would have been impossible.
That bond between us and our pet is very important. And when someone is going through a really tough time in their life, that bond becomes even more important. And that's what we're trying to protect at Pets of the Homeless.
Who's that?
My favourite quote is, "I always wondered why somebody doesn't do something about that. Then I realised I was somebody." My intention wasn't to actually start a charity. It was to help. It was just putting one foot in front of another, and that's how we got to where we are today. We're now in a warehouse. We have about 150 volunteers. We provide on average about 60 to 70,000 meals every single month. We have a network of about 73 community partner organisations that we work with. We've also taken in hundreds of pets into our foster care program, and we've just reached 2.5 million meals distributed.
In the time that I've been volunteering with Pets of the Homeless, I've seen the community grow, numbers of volunteers, pet food packing, got a brand new van, and we can reach more community pantries and reach more people. The community, whether it's the volunteers who are packing the food, who are foster caring, they've got so much love to give.
I think Pets of the Homeless gives people hope. There can be a bit of judgment for people who are homeless and have a dog, but the reality is those dogs have got love and support, and it's so wonderful that Pets of the Homeless are able to help. It really makes a big difference in actual lives. It's really important work.
To the people who have supported Pets of the Homeless over the last 10 years, thank you from the bottom of my heart. There's so many kind people out there, and I'm just grateful for all of them. The work that we need to do is so huge and the need is growing, and we can't do it without the support of our community.
We're today's news talk, The World Today.
And welcome back, petsofthehomeless.com.au. I think a great organisation. And I always feel sorry for the poor animals, because we have at our place many. Oops, mustn't tell anybody. I think 40 is enough. No, not really, I'm just joking, 38. Keir Starmer suffered another resignation yesterday from his head of communications. Instead of taking responsibility, he signalled his intention to stay on and fight for the welfare of children. It's a little obvious, isn't it? His MPs can't be feeling comfortable. Will he last? Many think not, but there doesn't appear to be an obvious successor. Now, in the meantime, there's some disquiet about the decision of the Ministry of Justice to delete UK's largest court reporting archive, Court Desk. Why are they doing this? To prevent reporting on certain cases, maybe. And Rupert Lowe's rape gang inquiry has had little attention in the media. Now, this is criminal. Robin Tilbrook, one of our favourites, is the leader and chairman of the English Democrats and chairman of the Workers of England Union. Robin, how are you?
Hello, Mike. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Greetings. What's your thoughts, by the way? I'm going to get straight into this. I'm not going to talk about your guns, although I see one over your left shoulder. Magnificent. What's your thoughts about recent political developments at Downing Street?
Yes, well, as you say, Keir Starmer looked very likely to be pushed out, because he's had the leader of the Scottish Labour Party call for him to go. And of course, you've got a whole situation where it turns out that he knew quite a lot about Peter Mendelssohn's relationships with Epstein, and yet even so appointed him as the British ambassador to the United States. That is one of those things that is comes on top of a whole load of other mistakes that Starmer's made, and that don't seem to be working out very well for the Labour government. The result is that many Labour MPs are beginning to think that they might lose their seat come the next general election, and so they're getting pretty restless with Keir Starmer.
Yeah, I wonder why they would think that they might lose their seats. Although I am still out. No one has convinced me that the celebrity game show host in waiting, Nigel, is the right man to do the job. And I saw him on the news when he says, "We're going to bring in all these Tories who know how government works." Yes, but they lost the last election. So why it would be like saying, "Well, this is a beautiful boat. It's short. It sank last time, but we put a new funnel on it, painted it. What about the bottom of it? We'll get to that next time." That's the same thing. So I think they're going to they're courting disaster. And I think, look, I need to ask you, Robin, would you ever vote for Nigel?
You ask a good question. I think the issue really, I'm just avoiding the answer slightly, because I think the issue really is that that he's probably going to be the only game in town in terms of a new challenge to be prime minister at the next general election. We'll see a bit more about that in the next couple of weeks, because in a couple of weeks' time we've got the results of the Gorton by-election, which is up in so-called Red Wall area. In other words, an area where Labour have consistently won the seat. And if the reform candidate, Professor Matthew Goodwin, if he wins that seat, then it's clear that Labour really are in big trouble. And it's also clear at that point that Reform are going to be quite likely to win the next general election. We've got a further series of tests in May, where at the beginning of May, where there will be elections for the Welsh Assembly and the Scottish Parliament, and also for some local elections in England. And if Reform do really well in those, I think they are then on track to win the next general election. And
we have you just, sometimes when you disappear, I mean, the face is there, it's looking magnificent, but there you're back again. It was.
Oh dear. But what did you lose of me?
Only the last about 5 seconds. So I think we're okay. We get the we get the your inclination, Your Honour. What further revelations do you think would finish Starmer?
I think it's probably not so much further revelations, although anything very significant might well. I think what's happening is that within Labour, within the ranks of Labour MPs, there are various people who are thinking that they might possibly become Prime Minister if they could displace Starmer. And I think a good example of that is Wes Streeting, who's the Secretary of State for Health in England. And he's obviously been manoeuvring, and in particular what he's done in the last couple of days is he's released all his email exchanges with Peter Mendelsohn in order to try and show that he's not part of the scandal. He's also been reasonably effective as an MP, as a minister, certainly by comparison to most of his colleagues who have been almost totally ineffective. So, on the face of it, he might be somebody who become the next leader. I think his main problem is that I'm not sure whether many of the MPs who got elected rather unexpectedly at the last general election, whether they would actually support him, because he's seen as being to the right of the Labour Party. So probably what we'll get is, if Starmer does go, we will get somebody who's to the left of Labour. Angela Rayner was positioning herself to be that, but she's got an inquiry into her tax affairs going on. So I don't know whether she will be able to stand. So we might wind up with somebody that we're not really expecting. And of course, if you do wind up with a left wing figure within the Labour Party, that person's going to be against the enforcement of border controls and believe in refugees welcome here and other such slogans. What that will mean is that Labour will carry on operating against the wishes of not only the majority of the people in England, but also the actual majority of former Labour supporters, white working class English people, who are feeling that Labour is actually against them rather than for them.
Yeah, I think Labor are in many ways against them, but it all fits in with the narrative from the WEF and Europe. You mustn't forget Europe, and you're making all sorts of inroads. Got to get back to mother. Got to hang on to that. Hang on to a skirt. There, I've been kind. What about Chagos? Now, I recall Donald Trump's said a very kind thing about, the nicest thing anyone's ever said about Starmer, that he was the dumbest thing was something he's ever seen, the stupidest thing. And then now Trump's not going to stop it. We know Donald does change his mind every second, but that's surprising. What do you think?
It's certainly very surprising that he's agreeing to Chagos Islands and one of the most important American bases in the whole of the Pacific area, to be handed over to, as it were, the sort of freehold of Mauritius, who, after all, on the face of it, seems an unlikely candidate to become the country in charge of that, because after all, they're thousands of miles away from it, and never have actually had ownership of the Chagos Islands. But nevertheless, they are also seen as being more or less allied to, but not, I don't think openly allied, but certainly in the area of influence of China. So it's quite a strange thing to have Trump, with the sort of things he says, approving of this. But I do think he's one of those people who doesn't stick to one point of view. It's probably a question of who spoke to him last.
I think so. Now, court desk. The archive is being deleted. What does that mean?
Yeah, so I mean, court desk has been making a really good effort at trying to make some sense of the listings system, which the various courts have been operating. Essentially, there was no overall system, and the Ministry of Justice, so-called, which is a Blair creation, had been pretty useless at providing any information particularly to journalists, about what hearings were taking place, in which courts and when, so that these people were trying to sort that out. And the upshot of that, of course, is that journalists started to be able to see when and where important hearings were taking place. And the result is, of course, that the MOJ's inefficiency and general incompetence, and Ministry of Justice's incompetence, has been exposed. So consequently, the ministers, and one of the ministers who's been involved in this decision, in particular, Sackman, she has said that she wants the whole thing closed down. She's also the one who was saying that she wants to get rid of most jury trials, and she's obviously doing it for an ideological reason, because she says she'd want to do that even if it didn't make any difference at all to the huge backlog of jury trials that we've got waiting to be tried.
Yeah, I don't think you need juries. I think you just need a guillotine off with the head. I was talking to John Blair about that yesterday, and I think it's a tradition you should bring back, the removal of one's head.
Not an English tradition, I might add.
But you did it, though, a few times.
Not the guillotine, we didn't.
I know, but you used the sword or the axe.
Yes, there were a few limited numbers of nobles who'd got into trouble with medieval kings.
Do you think Andrew, former Prince Andrew, is breathing a sigh of relief that they don't embrace that tradition? I mean, it's just my own thought. He might have something else chopped off too. The court desk. What are they? Can you tell me what they're worried about? Asylum seeker convictions, maybe child trafficking and exploitation cases. Because this woman who what's her name again? Who wants to get rid of juries?
I think her name's Sackman.
So is she? Does she need to see someone about her mental condition?
I just think what's happened there is that the Labour government are being essentially devious about things and trying to make sure that people do not have access to information which they don't want them to have. I don't think it's about the good of the country or anything like that. I think it's political opportunism at play.
Now we had Catherine Blakelock on the other day, and we're talking about Rupert Lowe. He's urged the Home Secretary Shabana Mahmood to launch an official investigation under the Inquiries Act after his rape gang inquiry revealed failed attempts by abusers to traffic girls overseas. It's very disturbing. How come this has gone thump and not moved anywhere?
So obviously the background is that for at least 30 years now, not only has there been the Pakistani Muslim child rape gangs operating with impunity, but the reason they've been operating with impunity is because the police, social workers, local government, local politicians, and even national politicians have been involved in covering this up. And part of the cover-up, of course, has involved the so-called mainstream media. Here's a situation with the Rupert Lowe inquiry that lots of extremely upsetting and appalling testimony has been given, and the lid has been lifted on this horrible scandal, which would reflect badly not only on the political establishment but also on the media establishment. So they haven't wanted to report it, and I'm not surprised that that's happened. I think it's horrible that it has, but I've seen this happening now for some time in this country, that you can't get a story out there which the mainstream media don't like and is against their general multiculturalist agenda. Because, of course, the point about this story is that it simply shows that the state's multiculturalist project is not working and is actually operating in a way that is completely against the interests of white working class English people.
It is disgraceful, isn't it?
Yes, totally disgraceful.
I mean, it's I shake my head sometimes, Robin, when we would talk about these things, and I think of those poor kiddies, those poor children.
And I think it does tie in with what we've seen of what's been going on with the Epstein case. I mean, Epstein is in one sense about paedophilia. It's also a sort of honey trap, blackmail operation. I think what we've seen there is that there are clearly quite a large number of rich or powerful men in the West, and in particular, obviously in the Epstein case in America, but also some across the pond here. Obviously, Mendelssohn we've been talking about, but what you see there is the depth of moral depravity and corruption that we've got in the elite, and their willingness to turn a blind eye to the mass systematic gang rape and pimping of underage girls across the United Kingdom, in particular in England, of course. I think that's just another example, in a way. In terms of the numbers, it's a far greater scandal than Epstein. But nevertheless, of course, all the media are talking about Epstein because it's in America, and they're not talking about the child rape gangs.
It's just mind-boggling. Bit of time left, about a minute and a half. Now, Elon Musk, just tell me what you think about his role in funding private prosecutions. Probably put the government to shame, wouldn't it?
Well, he said on Twitter that he would do so, but so far as I'm aware, he hasn't yet actually started to do so. If he does, particularly if he does so with a significant amount of money, that would be another game changer in the country, because if you actually were able to bring private prosecutions against what turns out to be literally thousands of police officers, officials, and politicians, then I think even the mainstream media would find it difficult, if not impossible, to avoid reporting on it. And so the story would become ever more widely known. What I find is, when I'm talking to people and they are starting to become sort of half aware, many ordinary people, they're starting to become sort of half aware of what's going on. And when it's explained, they are utterly horrified, and it's one of those moments where the scales fall off their eyes, and they realise that they don't actually live in a country where the state cares for people at all.
Yeah, very sad. Okay, we're just about out of time. If somebody wants to find out more about what you do, how they can probably have a chat to you, donation to your causes, being your political parties, or talk about where they can share a whiskey with you, or maybe have a chat about firearms. How do they do that?
So I'm not sure I would be in a position to have a chat about firearms particularly, but although I have got a musket behind me, I agree.
That's right. Don't fire it. You cause damage as well. Don't fire it. You cause damage to yourself. Kaboom. But if they want to find out more about you, though, just quickly, how do they do that?
So I'm on Twitter, which is at Robin Tilbrook, and the English Democrats are englishdemocrats.party, and the Workers of England Union, which is important for people to join if they are in England and perhaps have dissident views in any way from the way the regime wants. Then the Workers of England Union are workersofengland.co.uk.
Absolutely brilliant. Robin Tilbrook, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for getting up so early too, by the way. This is The World Today. Coming up next, we'll have The Protagonist. A very good morning for the UK. It's 11 after 8 in the morning, probably off to work, or some are starting a bit later. Some are getting up for a cup of tea and a crumpet. In Australia, it's 12 past 7 in New South Wales and Victoria, and 12 past 6 in Queensland, and about 200 years behind at times. No, not really. I always say that because I'm from the South originally. Now, Pippa Bartolotti is an author, activist, anti-war and human rights campaigner. Pippa founded and managed her own companies before taking early retirement. Half her luck. She has lived in Cuba, backpacked around India, and driven a convoy of humanitarian aid from Wales across Europe to Gaza. Now, while attempting to enter Bethlehem, she was arrested by Israeli security and imprisoned. She became leader of Wales' Green Party in 2011 and now campaigns for direct democracy. Pippa has consistently campaigned for the rights of the oppressed and against war. And we're going to talk to Pippa today about the latest UK political developments and what changes can be expected in Keir Starmer if he does resign sooner or later, and how the UK's role in the Israel-Gaza conflict might change. So far, it's just words. Pippa will also bring us up to date on the partial arms embargo the UK has imposed on certain export licences. Pippa, thanks for joining us. We need to turn the microphone on. That's that little button says microphone on. And there we are, we're getting close. There we are.
Hey,
Pippa,
hello, good morning, Mike.
Greetings and salutations. How the hell are you?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, we're here in Wales. It's just after 8 in the morning.
Is it raining? Is it raining?
Of course. Of course it's raining. I mean, I must just quell one little rumour. It hasn't rained all day, every day this year. But it has rained every day, and I have got stuck in probably most of it. But I expect when the sun eventually shows itself in a blue sky, we'll all run out naked and dance.
That'd be very interesting. I mean, I won't do it because it's too cold. Tell me, what's happening with Starmer at the moment? Tell me, because Starmer's a very bad egg. That's what I think. I think he's grossly incompetent, but he's a little bit like, I suppose, Joe Biden. Joe Biden was worse, but he was told what to do by his administration. And we know the Labor Party is fairly heavy-handed at times. Obviously, he's doing, in many cases, what he's told to do. And for doing that, he could very well lose his position as PM. What do you think will happen to Starmer?
Well, I think he's sitting on a very sharp spike right now. It hasn't sort of penetrated yet, but it's there. The man is, he was groomed for the role. He's got no charisma. He looks like a piece of putty. He's not a very good speaker. I mean, there's nothing about him that makes him a good leader in anybody's book. But, we have him. But, the architect of his leadership and Labour's win in the poll, the general election, was Morgan McSweeney, of course, who has gone. And he was the power, the strength, the direction, the strategy. So I don't think Morgan McSweeney is actually gone. He might have resigned from his role, but he's going to be lurking there in the background somewhere, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of people ready to pay.
He's still going to get a paycheck.
Yeah, of course.
And again, it's the legacy of media, and people go, "Oh, he's resigned." Well, actually, he's just gone to another part of the government.
Yeah, he's just moved offices. It's sad, isn't it? But I did a little bit of digging, and of course, the reason for my long-time loathing of Morgan McSweeney is because he was the architect of the anti-Semitic slurs on Jeremy Corbyn, who should by rights be Prime Minister right now and probably in his second term. But they did a good job, and plenty of people were called up to sit on that line and call Corbyn anti-Semitic, which of course he hasn't got an anti-Semitic bone in his body. But it worked, and the media guilt all across them. But I did a bit more digging to find out that, of course, I have been dragged through the coals twice on charges of anti-Semitism and have been released from them as well. Once, I might add, for quoting David Cameron. I got into the bad books of somebody for doing that. The vampires like the vampire friend of Mussolini, like Mandelson, Jewish ancestry. I'm going to be called anti-Semitic, but I think it's okay to say the word Jew out loud. That McSweeney spent a lot of time on a kibbutz in his earlier days. The Jewish Mandelstrom, the unashamedly Zionist mainstream media, and not just in this Britain, not just in Britain, but in the world. There's something going on here, and the same thing's going on in the States and across Europe to a large extent. This is a long-term strategy that has been slowly ripening in the backwaters of political circles and business, banking, etc. circles. I mean, the penalizing of universities in the States, the sacking of principals for standing up for Palestine. I mean, there has been a tidal wave of Zionist activity trying to squash anyone who speaks out against it. And, if we had listened to the women who were involved with Epstein quite some time ago, if we had done the work on looking at what had really happened to them and who was doing it, we probably wouldn't have Starmer now. We probably wouldn't even have had Trump. And possibly we wouldn't even have had a genocide, because this is what it's all aiming towards: getting rid of the Palestinians by hook or by crook, so that Israel can start achieving its horrible Zionist dreams. There's half the current UK cabinet are friends of Israel. They've taken shed loads of money from Israel and had all the trips and the private jets, etc. 180 British MPs are friends of Israel. Their votes have all been bought. Genocide is not allowed to be mentioned. Nobody has said the word Gaza, apart from Trump when he's talking about real estate and the potentials there. So I really I'm really pretty hot under the collar about all this, because good people are being cast aside and innocent people are being killed. And if you look at the what's been happening in the Epstein ranches and villas and islands, there have been unspeakably demonic things going on. And my imagination can't even go there. This all should have been sorted out 25 years ago when the first people, well, I think it was as long ago as 1986 when the first girls were going to the FBI and complaining, and the FBI, of course, didn't open a case.
Isn't it sad, though, some of your traditions have gone? I mean, I think of former Prince or Andrew Mountbatten of Windsor, is that right? Or something like that. Anyway, the old traditions such as beheadings, they were great, and I think they really had a way of. I mean, you could have had a party. You could have had like Wembley, the guy with the axe, and you march him out, thumbs down. And I miss those days, by the way. But and I'm being very, very frivolous, but many would probably agree with that. These people are repulsive, and no other word for it, and they should rot in hell.
Absolutely. I'm not with you on the beheadings, and I'm not one of them. Okay, but they weren't really that much of a deterrent back in the day, anyway, were there? But now,
when you had your head cut off.
All you need now is friends in high places, and you can do that. A bit of blackmail, a bit of corruption here and there. It spreads like a deadly disease.
What about Starmer? But I love his new campaign to fix child poverty, but his policies are impoverishing families.
Starmer, obviously the most unpopular Labour Prime Minister in history, and has been for some time. He's not a statesman. He's not even a politician. He's not even a socialist. I mean, the first thing they did when they got into office was remove the winter fuel allowance for old age pensioners. I mean, what the most vulnerable people in our society, the two-child cap benefit. Again, children, the most vulnerable people in our society, getting penalised from the get-go. Obviously, most politicians put in their most unpopular policies up front, but then they start building up towards doing the nice stuff towards the following election, so that everybody will think they're wonderful, and most people have short memories. But I don't think we have such short memories here. He has remained steadily unpopular. The Labour Party even hates him, and although a lot of cabinet ministers rallied round last night to say, oh, la-di-da, of course he's going to be, and in fact I happened to notice one interview where one of the female MPs was being interviewed, and she was asked point blank if she thought Starmer would be in place next year, and she shook her head and said yes at the same time, which was really interesting.
Yeah, sorry.
I'm sorry, Mike. After you.
No. He's very divisive, isn't he?
He's just plain unpopular. He's like a reptile. He's got no warm blood in him, and to be part and party of this genocide in Palestine is it's unforgivable. I mean, everybody who's been involved in that cannot be forgiven. I don't care what else they've done in their lives. For the killing of 100,000 or more innocent people, it's unforgivable. And they're living such awful lives right now. I'm in touch daily with a friend who lives with his family in Gaza, and to force people to live in tents through the winter, to bomb the tents, with the gales and everything. And then if they've got medical problems, he's got kidney stones at the moment. How's he going to get treatment for kidney stones, for God's sake? It's horrifying, absolutely horrifying.
In 2024, the UK government recognised that for certain UK arms exports to Israel, there existed a clear risk that they might be used to commit or facilitate a serious violation of international humanitarian law. Foreign Secretary David Lammy announced the suspension of some arms export licences to Israel. Can you tell me what arms were banned and what percentage of the but truly, what was the percentage of the export licences did they constitute, or was this just words?
I think I read somewhere that it constituted about 6% of the export licenses. But to be perfectly frank, have you seen any F-35s dropping out of the sky? Of course, we sent them what they needed to persist in the persecution of the people in Gaza. Of course, the F-35s had all their spare parts, which was the main thing as far as export licenses were concerned. They weren't stopped. I don't know, maybe they stopped a particular kind of bullet to make it look good. But frankly, the spare parts for F-35s continued. And if they didn't continue direct from the UK, they went via America. So the US had no ban on sending stuff to Israel, and that was just a get out of jail free card as far as Starmer and the Labour government was concerned.
I also see that the UK government still continues to supply intel to Israel's intel services such as Mossad. That would be a worry too, because and besides, forget just Israel. You could also say the same thing about China. Again, it shows you poor decision making from the Labour Party or Labour government.
I think it's part of the strategy, Nick. I don't think it's poor decision making. It was what they were always going to do. The British intelligence and Mossad are almost one and the same thing these days. If you look at the flight paths of RAF planes from Cyprus taking off and circling around Gaza every day, you see the extent is almost unfathomable of the cooperation of British intelligence services to Israel. it is blood on our hands, and it is our money too. It's our public services, our education, our healthcare that's being sacrificed in order to sacrifice more people somewhere else.
Tell me about they're talking about replacing Starmer with Wes Streeting. I don't think he's a great choice, do you?
Well, another piece of putty with no charisma. I mean, they really are scratching the barrel. Wes Streeting, of course, wants to be Prime Minister. I don't think it's a secret. It's his own ambition. And David Lammy, who's current second in command, as it were, is not a good choice by anybody's standards. David Lammy has been consistently decried as some kind of idiot for many years. He's just there to look good. He's black. He does what he's told. He's a yes man. There's not hardly anybody really available. I mean, Angela Rayner did something daft and she was taken out of the picture. I think she does have a shred of working class socialism in her, and they would bring her back if they thought she'd be any good, but she doesn't want to toe the line. She's a different kind of animal. She was made deputy leader just to make it look good, not because they ever thought she would be leader. So I think the Labour Party is a past tense party. It's the Labour people I speak to around here, who are trying to set up this new political party, your party with Corbyn and Zara Sultana, they are horrified with Labour. But there are a lot of people who know which side their bread is buttered, who will continue to toe the line. I think one of the big tests coming up in a couple of weeks is the Gorton by-election, and where the Greens are looking pretty strong and Labour is hardly in the running. It looks like a Green reform battle there. And of course, the Scots, having come out last night and said that Starmer should go, are trying to save their own votes in time for their elections coming up in May. So we see politics at play, but bad politics. Really, what I would say, disingenuous politics taking place, and nobody really at the helm, except of course Morgan McSweeney, who will probably remain there for quite a long time.
He still needs some money.
He'll find plenty of people to pay him. You know how that revolving door works. Politics to banks, to the nuclear industry, to defence, to the contracts, and back to politics again. He'll find plenty of people to pay him.
Look at the Tories. They're finished. They're gone. They're back under the guise of Reform UK. I mean, the same thing.
Reform's got almost the entire Tory cabinet now.
I know.
So, we're working very hard here, obviously, to help people to understand what reform is really about. And that kind of populist politics, which is about basically scapegoating and creaming off even more money from the poor to give to the rich. So, people clutching at straws that the state of British politics is so bad. They will vote reform, of course, a lot of them, I know that. But, it's like the people who voted Labour last time. They were, a lot of them, harking back to the good old days. I'm not sure when they were. Blair wasn't for me the good old days of Labour. He was another son of Thatcher. So we've lost socialism, which is the general plan. Everything's moved to the right. We have lost our values. Let's put it that way.
And you're not alone. Australia, look at Canada, the US, in many cases. Just quickly, I always say, and it's not tongue in cheek. I think Nigel Farage is a celebrity game show host in waiting. Would you disagree?
He's more of a used car salesman, really. I think.
He's bitchier than me. I can't believe it. Someone's outdone me.
Would you buy a second-hand car from him? Come on.
I wouldn't buy a Truly, although he'd probably sell me a Hillman Imp. But I used to have one of those, and first and only time I've ever had one, and there was not a lot of wear and tear on the car because it was in the garage. Truly, most of the time, the worst car I have ever had. So that's my don't ever buy a Hillman Imp. Pippa, if somebody wants to find out more about you, how do they do that?
Oh, track me down on social media. I'm part of a lot of organisations, but for example, Global Women Uniting for Peace Against NATO are a flat organisation. We don't have leaders and chairpersons and everything. We are absolutely flat. We are global. We are working against NATO because, of course, even in Britain, we're going to see another, goodness knows me, 35 billion go towards NATO. Well, it doesn't really go to NATO, of course, it goes to the US because that's where we're supposed to buy all the weapons from.
Incredible. I think we should have von der Leyen on the front line.
That would have been lovely. Yeah, Rhonda Crazy, as some will call her. Dear me, yeah. I mean, she doesn't wear the jackboots, or at least I think she does wear them under her trousers. I must look more carefully next time.
Great. Pippa, thank you so much for your time. We'll talk again hopefully next week. This is The World Today.
Not the station for people who label truth as misinformation just because they don't like it.
For facts and truth.
Today's News Talk. The World Today.
And welcome back to The World Today. We're going to talk 15-minute cities in a tick, following our conversation with John Mayer yesterday, who lives in Oxford. John Mayer lives in Oxford, and he's doing. He's got his Yaris, and he loves the idea of a 15-minute city, and we'll talk about how that's not such a great thing because of the 15-minute cities. Basically, like what do they say? Let the games begin from Hunger Games, and we'll talk to Dr. Shane Fudge. Now, Shane enjoyed a 20-year career in academia in a variety of teaching, research and educational roles. His research post at the University of Surrey, specialising in the governance and policy of a low-carbon transition. He then took up a 5-year teaching post at the Uni of Exeter, teaching energy policy, environmental politics and research methods in environment and also sustainability. Shane now writes for the alternative media in the UK. He's published in the Light Truth newspaper, which is a great newspaper, The Conservative Woman and The White Rose. We're going to talk to Shane today about their diabolical, and they are, contrary to what John Mayer says in his Yaris. He's got a roller, really, I think. The 15-minute cities are being imposed on UK citizens, which I think is just appalling. Shane, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me on your show.
John Mayer, he lives in Oxford. He doesn't speak proper, almost though. And he tells me he has a Yaris, but I reckon he's got a Bentley or a roller. And in fact, he drove into his neighbour's house the other day, which is not a great thing to do. And if you're in a Yaris, you wouldn't be talking to us. But he really loves the idea of a 15-minute city. What would you say to him once reality bites?
Could I ask what reasons he gave?
Well, he just said you can just drive around still. You drive to the centre, and you can get buses, and you can. It's going to be a lovely time. Less pollution, doesn't infringe upon your rights, that sort of stuff. By the way, he also likes Starmer. Oh no, he doesn't like Starmer, and he likes the Labor Party. So that probably accounts for part of his bias. But I mean, he's right behind it, and I was quite shocked.
Yeah, well, I would probably have been on his side 20 years ago. My journey on this started. I was a postdoc at the University of Surrey, looking at low carbon transitions, and working for a research group on lifestyles, values, and environment. My particular area was looking at low carbon transition, and it ended up being looking at the role of local authorities and NGOs and kind of more sub-state governing actors in this. And I believed in climate change at the time. I thought it was actually a it was actually a phenomenon we should be worried about.
You
But
drank the Kool-Aid.
wow, it was 2020 that woke me up when I realised that I realised straight away pretty well that COVID was a scam. And then I thought, well, if they can lie about something like that, they can lie about anything. So I started doing my own research into climate change, and I found a very, very different story from the one that I'd been researching and teaching about in academia. And it
Yeah,
didn't, all the
sorry,
people.
we have a lot of friends who are geologists who study history and or the history of the planet, and they say all you have to do is, which many people say, if you know history, you can also not predict the future, but you get an idea what's going to happen. And history would say, as from a geologist's point of view, that this climate change thing is just a pure scam.
Absolutely, yeah. You only have to look at a lot of the climate scientists. That the official line from the UN is that 97% of scientists agree that climate change is happening. Well, that's not true. It's one of the lies that's been peddled over the years. A lot of the people have taken their names off the UN, the UNFCCC. You've obviously heard of the hockey stick, where lots of periods that were warmer in history were actually omitted from the data, given the appearance of a huge acceleration from the 1960s into where we are now. There's all these different things that kind of go against. And, I always say follow the money. Science is never a full circle anyway, and it should be able to be challenged. But you only have to look at the people that are discredited when they raise questions about it. David Bellamy was one of the BBC. He was working for the BBC in the 1980s, and as soon as he started questioning the narrative, he was never employed by them again. So, there's a massive cover, and that a mass. I wasn't aware of this, but a mass kind of the data. I think it's called evidence-based policy. That the kind of data is put together to support the argument that they're proposing. And it was only when I started doing my own kind of dive down the rabbit hole, I realised, and I kind of, Rockefeller was doing were funding research into climate change in the 1950s, and climate change research at that time, because scientists were looking into warming on the environment, but it was very kind of neutral. There wasn't any kind of sense that we are under threat. But the Rockefellers saw a chance to kind of use a veneer for their depopulation agenda. So when I started looking at a lot of different literature around this, I had a very, very different picture. It's interesting. I've got some insight. I've got an insider knowledge from universities and academia, who incidentally are funded very much on the way that the government want direction of society to go. A lot of the big climate projects and that, and and other things, woke agendas, diversity, and things like that. They're the ones funded, and you can't. And it's also taught us that it's actually self-evident that climate change is happening. There's no teaching in universities, college, or schools that questions any of this. It's all that we take this as self-evident that it's happening, and it's not the case at all. There's plenty of scientists talking out about. So the fact that 15-minute cities itself is based on this immediately, there's, that our lives now are based on fossil fuels. Great growth is based on fossil fuels. So if you take this away, if you have a renewable energy system, which is what it will be, we'd have to reduce our energy by probably half of what it is now, because we don't have the volume or the capacity to drive current energy systems on what would be a renewable energy strategy. We're already kind of getting rid of coal. That's being eradicated. And they're already part of 15-minute cities. I think they're already getting us used to the idea we're going to have to use radically less energy than we use at the moment, as well as the other kind of motivations behind this.
The government, actually not just the government, governments around the world, they certainly rely on porkies, whether it's whether it's within Europe with the conflict there between Russia and NATO. Some say it's Russia and Ukraine, but it's not. It's Russia and NATO. Then we have we have climate change. We have COVID. And just before I get into the next question, you think about those poor farmers. I mean, they're surrounded by cattle and sheep and livestock, and if you believe government, these poor farmers are putting their lives in danger because, of farting from these animals who are destroying the planet, and the farmers are on the front line here, sacrificing their lives to put up with the wind that's been passed by the animals that's destroying the planet. I can see one day maybe Starmer might introduce corkage for animals to protect them. I mean, it's terrible. And yet they persist with that. They keep going with that. Look at the Netherlands, what they did to their farming industry. And it's just incredible that our governments, backed by legacy media and sometimes independent media, they push the narrative of this garbage, and we the people fall for it a lot of times, and that's why you're important. Tell us about the 15-minute cities. What's the worst aspects of this?
Well, we haven't seen it yet. They're only kind of building up to this now.
What do you think they will be?
Well, what's coming up was obviously, I think I said in the article I wrote, and it's a 3-lock approach. So you start with identity, digital identity, and then programmable currency. So you will only be allowed to spend your money on certain things that are environmentally friendly, and then the 15-minute cities themselves. I don't think we really understand totally how these are going to work yet. I have an idea, and I have an idea that all the roadworks we've been seeing over the last since 2020, strangely enough, that Oxford himself, I mean, you spoke to this guy yesterday, that it's going to be divided up into districts. So this is then going to be linked to your bank account. There's going to be a digital currency, so they're going to be doing away with cash. Everything's going to be centralized, probably universal income because there's going to be no jobs. AI is taking care of that. And they knew all this before this all happened in 2020. The banks were all talking about this great reset, this great transformation. So it's all going to be locked in together. So once this is all up together, once the digital ID, programmable currency, and the 15-minute cities, that's a physical enforcer. So you will only be allowed to travel certain distances. You will have a carbon credit. So if you overdo that, it works on blockchain, so they can stop your transactions. It's already kind of semi-operational now if you go onto Amazon or anything like that. So this is all going to be, once these are in place, it's going to be very, very difficult to back out of it. Oxford, like I said in my article, Oxford is kind of like the flagship for this. And they were pushing, and they have a very strong Green Alliance. They've always had a very strong Green Alliance in that area. So they've got links to the university, the Oxford Institute for Environmental Change, who I worked with. I know some of these characters, and I know that the council have a lot of Green members on there. They're very much about pushing this. There have been other local authorities that have done the same. So Woking, they've kind of they've got combined heat and power plants in their area. But gradually this is filtering down to other local authority areas that are kind of, a lot of them now have got baseline emission reduction targets for 2030 lined up. And also other local authorities are also being corralled into this as well. So while local authorities lost a lot of their power under the Tory government in the 1990s, they've seen a way back into this as like a branding and a way of ensuring their longevity by kind of tagging onto this UN agenda where there's all money in it. Businesses are having to align through ESG, things like that. So local authorities have got much more power, and was also part of the reason that Local Agenda 21 was introduced in the Rio Earth Summit, because the UN realised that government ceding national sovereignty in any area would have been quite difficult at the time. The Thatcher resigned because of us going deeper and deeper into European integration. So the UN saw a chance of mobilising subnational governments, so local authorities, NGOs, activist groups around the green agenda, a way of kind of pushing this agenda from below, so putting pressure on governments to kind of change around the UN goals. So, and Oxford were one of the councils that are very much forward thinking in this, and that's why I would argue that they're kind of at the centre of the 15-minute city agenda. I was actually part of the demonstration in 2023 when, because a lot of the local residents don't want this either, but they just shout it down by the council because they've got such a strong alliance around the green agenda now that it's very difficult for local residents to actually have their say in this. And there's a lot of people in the area that don't want this to happen.
It's a great way, I mean, because Bill Gates has been doing his shopping tour, encouraging that governments to be better prepared for the next pandemic. And I don't care what anybody says. I think Bill Gates is I can't do it. But anyway, he's a creep. But anyway, Bill Gates, though,
say the least.
But King Bill. He controls the world just about. If you want to, let's go back a couple of years to the Halligan days of COVID with the lockdowns. The biggest problem that authorities have is the control over large populations. So if you break down an area like, say, Oxford, and you make 6 smaller areas within Oxford, when you want to lock down an area, it's much easier, isn't it? And therefore the government control over you and me and everybody else is much more intensified, and it will become successful.
Of course. I think now, the lockdowns were the kind of trial for this. The lockdowns that we all suffered in 2020 and 21 were the rollout that they wanted to test compliance. The trouble is, when the 15-minute cities are in place, as you were saying, it'll be much easier to control people, and people are waking up by the day. People are waking up in large numbers now. But the trouble is, when the 15-minute cities are in place, it will be much easier to control those people that are going to be dissidents. And I mean, you only have to look at, there was a WEF tweet that was actually retracted, and I think it was early 2021, where there was a picture of blue skies on the WEF website, and they said, and the caption underneath said, "This is how we want the world to look now." They very quickly took it down. But you can see how these narratives have been interwoven, and they're both part of the same agenda, both heading in the same direction.
Tell me this, when they do these 15-minute cities, in say Oxford, for example, and you got these terrible, human beings wanting to go where they want to go, and they use up their 100, day pass. I can't believe I'm talking. It's like Hunger Games, but they use up their passes, and then they keep doing it. You'll have to probably have security in each of these areas, security and more cameras, because the camera is only going to get you after the crime of leaving your jail. That they can come and send you a fine which you won't pay, then they'll lock you up. But the security will be ramped up, won't it? Because they're going to stop you from, how dare you go to zone number 2 to to see your grandmother, for example, or your cousins. And so all these things, though, they have a cost. And the cost is not going to be borne by the government. It's going to be done by the ratepayers, the good folk of Starleg 13, some call Oxford.
I mean, this is already running in China. They're already.
But he's been talking to Xi, and he's been getting tips. I mean,
Yeah.
so he knows how to do it now.
Yeah, I think this has been the trial run anyway. Communist China and the social credit system that's actually working there. And there are, I don't know the numbers, but there are lots of people that have spoken out against the government and they're excluded from society. I mean, I don't know how they enforce that, but I mean, if you can't eat or get access to rudimentary services, then I mean, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to enforce it physically, but the digital system is going to do a lot of that anyway. There's going to be cameras everywhere, facial recognition, so you'll be excluded from society if you say anything against the government, or you're kind of, you'll have to live in a certain way because of what these people have. Stakeholder capitalism is what it's called, isn't it? Ring fencing resources and the environment, and giving them a price tag, and companies and they have to uphold the ESG, environmental and social governance standards, rather than market, because the whole green thing is about that capitalism's bad for people. And now they're getting their way through this. This has been planned for a long time. I think a long time, but it's gathered pace over the last 15, 20 years or so.
Can you believe, though, that in the space of a few years, if I said to you 2018, they're going to shut the whole world down, you can't leave your house, you would have told me to go and see somebody who could help with my mental health. And perhaps you could still recommend that. Some suggest I still need it. But if you look at, though, the what has happened to this planet of ours and the ludicrous reasons for, climate change, where cows and sheep are farting and all this stuff, and then you got your health, you got the control by the World Health Organization, Europe wanted to become bigger and better, and the whole thing kicks on. And now you have, like Hunger Games, you have these 15-minute cities, and whether we like it or not, unless we do something very quickly, in the space of a couple of years, you could find that they used to refer to the US as Fortress USA at one stage. It's going to be just like a jail for the UK, because you're going to have no more do you have these larger communities. You are locked into a small zone, and you are controlled no different than livestock.
Yeah.
Very scary, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Interesting, isn't it?
Again, I didn't really see this coming up, and I was kind of.
But who did? No one. But it's all.
No, but the really scary thing is that a lot of people are still going along with this and still can't see it.
Yeah, they are, and they like it. They think government is doing the right
Want to
thing.
be told what to do? Yeah. Who could have said that? Who could have ever imagined this could have happened? I'm not on Facebook anymore. I've been deplatformed from that. But I had a load of friends because I was at. I had a load of friends in academia. I have one friend left from 20 years in academia now because of speaking out on all of this. So
What about your family?
the people in academia are the most programmed of everyone. None of them want to believe that all their years of research are actually a pile of crap.
Do your family still talk to you? My family think that I should be come down from the tree.
Yes, my mum is. I managed to stop her from having the jabs because I was really concerned about her. My sister does speak to me, but my brother doesn't really but a lot of friends have dropped me over the years. I had loads of abuse from the University of Exeter. The friends I was still with on Facebook said I was a lunatic, basically, because of what I was saying about all this in 2020. So
I had a best friend I'd known for 20 years. I worked with him in the US. And he wrote to me one day and said, "We're no longer friends. You're responsible for many people dying." I thought, well, they're our beauty.
whereas in actual fact, it's the other way round. You're preventing a lot of people from going down that road.
You know, it's been a great conversation. We have run out of time. And Shane, I would like to do more of this. I think you've got a lot to say and we need to.
Yeah.
If somebody wants, I mean, I know you've been to your platform. I mean, we were hit last night on YouTube. Now we used to be a lot bigger than we are now, and YouTube and X. I mean, X one is gone, and the others one is gone because we want to talk to both sides. But YouTube and Facebook, 'cause you mentioned Facebook, they went after us the other day because they said we were infringing copyright, and the copyright we infringed was our own news service. Which means they want you to go. They just want you to disappear and shut the hell up.
Whatever excuse.
But you must have some social interaction out there. Like, are you on X or are you on News?
I'm not. No, I should be really. I'm not really. No, I've got an email address and stuff. If you want.
But not on Facebook. You have any?
No, I got. It was really weird because I was scrolling through Facebook and I all of a sudden had a message come up. You have to verify your ID digitally.
Yeah.
Really odd. Yeah, it was. I couldn't tell you why that happened, but I have my suspicions.
Well, Substack are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we've got to talk more. I do have to go because I have people waving at me at the moment outside the studio, and they're not nice waves, by the way. They're more like threats. Look, Dr. Shane Fudge, I have enjoyed this immensely, and you've been very illuminating. Next conversation we'll have, we'll talk about how we can actually stop this. And I don't think we can stop government. We can make a noise, but I think it's very, very hard to stop government because they're like this slow-moving tank and just roll straight over the top of you, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Shane Fudge, Dr. Shane Fudge, thank you very much. This has been The World Today. Great to have your company, folks. Tomorrow, same time, same channel, same phone box. Make sure you have corks for your pets. Otherwise, you'll be responsible for the destruction of planet Earth.